"I'll make this worth your silence," Jonathan Price said, his tone smooth, almost too casual, sliding a glossy check across the polished mahogany table at Olivia Harper. She paused, pen hovering over her notepad, her eyes steady, unmoved. The restaurant buzzed around them, crystal chandeliers casting fragmented light across linen-clad tables, the faint scent of roasted coffee and baked bread filling the air. Olivia straightened her spine, adjusted the crisp white cuffs of her uniform, and met his gaze evenly, her hands folded calmly atop the pad. He expected hesitation, a nervous stammer, maybe even a sheepish smile. "Nothing. This isn't on the menu," she said softly, the words carrying authority without a trace of anger, almost as if she were commenting on the weather rather than a multi-million-dollar proposition. Jonathan's half-smile faltered. He leaned back, trying to mask the surprise, the weight of his suit pressing against the leather of his chair as he studied her. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink faster than usual. She just waited. Silence stretched, thick and electric, punctuated only by the subtle clinking of silverware and the quiet hum of conversation elsewhere. A waiter passed by, unnoticed by both, carrying a tray of steaming plates. Olivia's blue eyes held his, calm, calculating, every muscle relaxed but every detail observed. "I don't make exceptions," she added, finally, a hint of a smile curling at the corner of her lips, but nothing more. Jonathan's jaw tightened. He cleared his throat, the practiced charm of a man used to getting his way faltering against the wall of composure in front of him. He gestured vaguely toward the check, the implication clear. "Take it, and play along." Olivia lifted the pen as if to sign, then placed it back, slow, deliberate, the gesture both polite and unyielding. The room felt smaller, as if their interaction drew the air closer, the clatter fading to the background. Jonathan's pulse quickened just slightly, not from fear, but from recognition that he had miscalculated, underestimated this quiet force before him. She had not raised her voice. She had raised the standard. Outside, a gust rattled the front windows, scattering the last leaves of autumn across the empty sidewalk. Inside, Olivia's calm held firm, the gentle sway of her apron, the measured rhythm of her breath, a stark contrast to the storm of wealth, power, and expectation contained in the man opposite her. He tried again, sliding a subtle hint of charm across his words, weaving a trap of persuasion, of flattery, of gentle coercion. Olivia responded with the precision of someone used to navigating pressure without bending. "I answer questions. I do not negotiate morality," she said quietly, almost conversational, yet each word cut through the layers of his strategy. Jonathan blinked, once, then twice, caught mid-thought, his mind scrambling to reassess. He had assumed he could shape the moment, control the outcome, predict her reaction. He had not accounted for intelligence cloaked in humility, for a calm that held more power than any bribe. The check sat untouched, the pen idle, the world moving on around them. But in that small bubble of perception, Jonathan Price felt the subtle quake of a lesson delivered without theatrics, without anger, a single, composed sentence that unsettled the very foundation of his expectation. Olivia collected the pen, set it neatly beside the pad, and moved on to refill a glass of water for another table, the graceful motion drawing eyes without effort, commanding attention through presence alone. Jonathan exhaled slowly, the first true acknowledgement of respect, unspoken, settling in the space between them, a quiet concession that power is not only measured in currency, but in the poise of the unseen, the intellect of the underestimated, and the composure of a woman who did not flinch when the world tried to sway her. Olivia Harper moved along the narrow aisle between tables, her steps measured, almost silent against the polished hardwood floor. Each movement carried the weight of routine and efficiency, yet her mind replayed the brief encounter with Jonathan Price over and over, examining the subtle flicker in his eyes, the way his hand hesitated over the check. The restaurant continued its usual rhythm, the low hum of conversation, the soft clatter of silverware against porcelain, and the occasional ringing of the kitchen bell blending into a familiar soundtrack of her day. She poured coffee for an elderly couple seated by the window, the steam rising in a delicate swirl, and paused to ensure the cream was just right, the sugar balanced perfectly, her attention to detail unwavering. Behind her, a young server dropped a tray, the sharp metallic clang momentarily drawing glances, but Olivia did not flinch, her focus unwavering on her customers, her composure intact. Jonathan Price remained seated, observing her from across the room, his tailored navy suit impeccable, the subtle sheen of his leather watch catching the overhead light. He had returned to his phone, but his posture was tense, the fingers tapping lightly against the screen betraying his preoccupation. Olivia adjusted a menu for a seated couple, the corners aligning precisely with the edge of the table, and a small smile tugged at her lips at the satisfaction of a perfectly set place. She moved to refill a glass of water, her motions fluid, practiced, the familiarity of the routine grounding her while the memory of the check lingered at the back of her mind. Jonathan lowered his phone slowly, his gaze following her every action, intrigued by the quiet authority in her movements, the subtle power conveyed without a single raised voice. Olivia approached another table, taking the order of a middle-aged man with meticulous care, her voice soft yet clear, each word measured, each gesture precise. The way she managed multiple tables simultaneously, the calm in her eyes, the lightness in her step, created a silent command over the space she occupied, drawing attention in a way that felt effortless yet profound. Jonathan noted the contrast between her composed demeanor and the expectations he had imposed, realizing that the attempt to manipulate or control had failed, not with confrontation or argument, but through quiet intelligence and unshakable poise. Olivia returned to the station to jot notes, the pen moving steadily, capturing orders and observations alike, her mind racing subtly with the calculation of timings, potential issues, and customer preferences. "Hey!" Server called out for assistance with a spill, and she glanced over briefly, nodding before continuing, her attention never wavering from the larger picture, balancing efficiency with grace. Jonathan's interest deepened, a slow acknowledgement of respect and intrigue forming as he watched, the awareness growing that the true strength in the room was not determined by title or wealth, but by intellect, presence, and the command of one's own dignity. Olivia adjusted a napkin for a young couple celebrating an anniversary, her fingers brushing the soft linen just so, and paused to observe their appreciative smiles, the satisfaction in their eyes a quiet confirmation of her skill and attentiveness. The afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the hardwood and highlighting the subtle textures of the room, the interplay of light and movement emphasizing Olivia's quiet mastery of her environment. Jonathan exhaled softly, a rare gesture, a subtle admission of admiration and contemplation, while Olivia continued her work with serene focus, unaware of the depth of impact she had already made with her calm confidence and composed presence. The evening deepened, the golden glow of the chandeliers mingling with the soft amber from the wall sconces, casting gentle shadows across the polished oak floors. Olivia Harper moved with quiet precision, refilling water glasses and checking on each table without a hint of rush, her posture straight, her gestures deliberate and graceful. Jonathan Price watched her from his seat, his initial amusement now replaced by a growing curiosity, the lines on his forehead softening as he studied her movements. A family of four laughed quietly at a nearby table, the children spilling a little water, and Olivia was there in an instant, a small, calm smile on her lips, mopping the table with efficient care, her eyes never leaving theirs longer than needed to ensure comfort. Jonathan noted the subtle command she held over the space, how customers responded without direct instruction, how her calm authority drew attention and respect without a single word of admonishment. She adjusted the placement of silverware for an elderly couple, the napkin folds crisp, the polished utensils catching the light just so, and then moved to another section, seamlessly balancing multiple tables with the kind of attention that suggested years of quiet observation and practice. Jonathan leaned back slightly, the leather of his chair creaking under the shift of weight, his mind replaying the brief encounter with the check and her composed response. He had expected hesitation, fear, or at least a hint of deference, none of which had appeared. Instead, he had witnessed someone who assessed, calculated, and responded in a way that demanded recognition through intelligence and poise alone. Olivia approached a young woman celebrating a birthday, kneeling slightly to meet her eye level, speaking in a tone soft and warm, the words tailored with care, and the girl's face lit up with delight, her parents exchanging grateful glances. Jonathan followed the interaction, noting the subtlety of influence, how presence and precision could shift perception more profoundly than wealth or authority. The kitchen bell chimed, and Olivia moved toward it with fluidity, her steps measured, her mind scanning orders and timing, ensuring each dish was delivered perfectly, each detail attended. A server accidentally dropped a utensil, the sound briefly slicing through the ambient noise, yet Olivia did not flinch. She continued her rhythm, a testament to her composed focus, her attention never distracted, her calm undisturbed. Jonathan adjusted the cuff of his sleeve, a small exhale betraying the respect forming quietly within him, the understanding that control, in its truest sense, was not asserted through money or status, but through mastery of self, grace under observation, and the quiet influence of competence. Olivia returned to her station, checking her notes, cross-referencing orders, and preparing for the next wave of customers, her calm presence radiating through the dining room, creating a subtle but palpable energy that shifted the dynamics of the space. Jonathan's gaze lingered on her, absorbing the lesson in poise and intellect, the realization that the world of influence and power could be quietly challenged without confrontation, that true authority could emerge from calm assurance, and that one person, without raising a voice or issuing commands, could command respect and attention in ways even he, a man accustomed to control, had not anticipated. The soft glow of the overhead lights reflected on the polished surfaces, illuminating Olivia Harper as she moved deliberately between tables, her steps silent but purposeful. Each table was a small world, each customer a delicate balance of attention and service, and she navigated both with effortless poise. Jonathan Price remained seated, the leather of his chair creaking slightly as he shifted, his eyes never leaving her. He noted the subtle way she anticipated needs before they were voiced, refilling a glass before it was empty, adjusting silverware without being asked, and exchanging brief, polite words with patrons that carried warmth yet maintained professional distance. The air smelled faintly of brewed coffee and baked bread, grounding the room in comfort, while Olivia orchestrated the flow with precise timing, each movement a quiet command that shaped the environment around her. A waiter passed carrying a tray stacked with plates, and Olivia intercepted a small spill on the edge of a table before it became noticeable, the gesture unnoticed by anyone but her, the room continuing its rhythm around this single act of attentive care. Jonathan exhaled slowly, his fingers drumming lightly on the armrest, impressed not by wealth or status, but by the unseen discipline, the intelligence, and the composure that Olivia exhibited. Her hands moved with precision, folding napkins, straightening menus, checking water levels, all without a single word, yet each act communicated control, confidence, and quiet authority. A couple at a corner table laughed softly, the child's excitement causing minor disruption, and Olivia knelt to the child's level, speaking gently and guiding the small hands away from tipping the glass, the smile she offered warm, measured, and genuine. Jonathan's attention sharpened, noticing that despite the weight of her responsibilities and the subtle pressure of the room, she maintained the same calm demeanor, unaffected by attempts to fluster her, her focus never wavering. Olivia returned to the station briefly, reviewing her notes with meticulous care, the pen gliding across the pad as she checked orders, her eyes scanning the room without haste but with intent. The subtle clatter of dishes in the kitchen, the soft hum of conversation, the occasional tinkle of silverware, all formed a backdrop that highlighted her rhythm, her presence steady, commanding, yet unassuming. Jonathan leaned forward, adjusting the cuff of his tailored sleeve, a silent acknowledgement forming in the crease of his jaw, an awareness that power could manifest not in commands or currency, but in patience, intellect, and the quiet assertion of competence. Olivia adjusted a chair slightly for a patron, the gesture minute but precise, and moved on, a ripple of efficiency and calm passing through the dining room, unnoticed by most, but leaving a lasting impression on the man observing her. Jonathan exhaled again, slower this time, a subtle shift in posture, as the realization settled that the real influence in the room was not dictated by title, not enforced through wealth, but earned through composure, intelligence, and the unshakable confidence of a woman who understood her environment and her own worth. Outside, the evening deepened, the streets quiet, the soft light of the city spilling through the windows, while inside, Olivia Harper continued her work, calm, meticulous, commanding attention in silence, teaching a lesson not through confrontation, but through the measured mastery of self and space. The clock on the wall ticked quietly, the soft mechanical rhythm blending with the low murmur of conversations and the occasional clink of glassware, as Olivia Harper moved between tables with precise, deliberate steps. Her apron swung lightly with each movement, the folds catching the warm light from the overhead fixtures, and she paused at a table to adjust a glass that had been slightly off-center, her fingers brushing it into place with effortless care. Jonathan Price observed her from his seat, the crease of his brow softening as he took in the subtle elegance of her motions, the way she seemed to command attention without raising her voice or gesturing broadly. She approached a young couple celebrating an anniversary, kneeling slightly to meet their gaze, her tone gentle and measured as she explained the specials of the evening, each word deliberate, each gesture careful, and the couple responded with a quiet admiration that spoke volumes without disrupting the flow of the dining room. Jonathan's eyes lingered on her, noting the interplay between her calm presence and the ambient energy of the restaurant, how she seemed to anticipate needs before they were voiced, refilling water glasses, clearing crumbs with quiet efficiency, and offering a reassuring nod to a child who had accidentally tipped over a fork. The lighting shifted slightly as a waiter passed, the crystal chandelier reflecting in the polished surfaces, creating delicate patterns on the walls, and Olivia moved seamlessly into the space, adjusting her pace to match the ebb and flow of customers and staff alike. Jonathan shifted in his seat, the weight of his tailored suit anchoring him as he observed her, his usual confidence tempered by a growing realization that control and influence could manifest in forms other than authority, currency, or status. She returned to her station briefly, reviewing a notepad with careful attention, cross-referencing orders and timing each service, the pen moving smoothly across the paper, her eyes scanning the room, taking in the subtle cues of patrons and colleagues without hurry, without distraction. A tray passed behind her, a plate slightly tilted, and she intercepted it with a graceful movement, correcting its balance and placing it with exact precision, the motion so natural that it seemed almost invisible to anyone not paying close attention. Jonathan exhaled slowly, a subtle acknowledgement of the competence before him, the quiet authority she wielded not through overt action but through presence, preparation, and a steady command of the environment. Olivia stepped toward a corner table, her voice soft and friendly as she inquired about a customer's preference for dessert, the slight smile she offered genuine yet restrained, and Jonathan noted how effortlessly she managed the attention of the room while maintaining her own center, unshaken and composed. The restaurant's ambience continued its gentle hum, the soft music mingling with laughter and conversation, yet Olivia's rhythm dictated the pace, a quiet, guiding influence that shaped the experience of everyone present. Jonathan leaned forward slightly, the tension in his posture easing as he absorbed the lesson in subtlety and poise, recognizing that power and respect could be earned through intelligence, calm, and attentiveness, that influence need not be loud or brash to be absolute. Olivia adjusted a napkin for an elderly patron, her movements precise, and moved on to attend another table, her presence a constant thread of composed energy throughout the room, her calm confidence leaving a silent but undeniable impression on Jonathan Price and anyone who took notice of the understated mastery with which she commanded her space. The evening shifted subtly as the sun dipped behind the skyline, the warm glow from the restaurant's chandeliers stretching shadows across the polished floors. Olivia Harper moved from table to table with deliberate care, her hands steady as she poured wine and adjusted plates, the soft swish of her apron accompanying each motion. Jonathan Price observed quietly, the initial arrogance that had accompanied him at the start of the evening now tempered by intrigue and admiration. He noted the precision in her movements, the unspoken timing she maintained, and the way she seemed to predict needs before they were verbalized. A young couple at a corner table struggled with a menu, their indecision brief and gentle, and Olivia knelt slightly, her calm tone guiding them effortlessly through their choices. She smiled briefly, small and understated, and the couple's tension eased instantly, laughter returning to their conversation. Jonathan shifted in his seat, the leather chair creaking under the subtle movement, his hands resting lightly on the table as he studied the rhythm of her work, the quiet authority she maintained without the need for raised voice or ostentatious gesture. The soft hum of conversation and the clinking of cutlery created a gentle backdrop, yet Olivia's presence drew the attention naturally, subtly shaping the space around her. She approached an older man seated alone, offering a warm yet composed greeting and taking his order with meticulous attention, the pen gliding across her notepad with fluidity, her eyes scanning for small details, water level, napkin alignment, glass placement, ensuring a seamless experience. Jonathan's gaze followed her, noting the interplay of diligence and poise, the effortless balance between efficiency and grace, and he felt a slow, unexpected respect taking hold. A waiter accidentally bumped into a chair, causing a faint scrape against the floor, and Olivia adjusted it quietly, the motion so precise that it seemed to restore the order of the room itself, unnoticed by most but profoundly effective. She moved to a table where two women were celebrating a promotion, suggesting desserts with gentle enthusiasm, listening intently to their preferences, and noting subtle cues that allowed her to anticipate their needs before they spoke. Jonathan exhaled softly, the realization settling that influence and control could exist beyond wealth and authority, that intellect, patience, and a composed presence could exert a quiet command over a room without confrontation or demand. Olivia returned to the central station, checking her notepad against the orders displayed, her fingers moving swiftly yet gracefully, confirming accuracy and timing with a calm precision. Jonathan adjusted his posture, leaning slightly forward, absorbing the lesson unfolding before him, recognizing that the measured competence and poise Olivia displayed were far more compelling than any show of power or gesture of wealth. The light from the chandeliers caught in the edges of her uniform and the soft shine of her pen, casting delicate highlights that mirrored the subtle influence she carried through the room, commanding attention without asserting it, and leaving Jonathan Price silently acknowledging the quiet mastery of a woman who had turned ordinary actions into a demonstration of extraordinary presence. The restaurant had settled into a quiet rhythm, the early evening bustle, giving way to a softer, more intimate atmosphere. Olivia Harper moved among the remaining tables with unhurried grace, her focus sharp, eyes scanning each detail, from the level of water in a glass to the subtle alignment of silverware, ensuring perfection without drawing attention to her effort. Jonathan Price remained at his table, leaning back in his chair, the light catching the edges of his tailored navy suit, his expression one of quiet reflection. He had watched her all evening, not just her movements, but the way she thought, anticipated, and interacted with people around her. A young man at the bar asked a question about the dessert menu, and Olivia approached with a soft smile, crouching slightly to meet his gaze, her voice calm and informative, each word deliberate and measured. Jonathan observed the subtle shift in the man's demeanor, how he straightened, smiled, and nodded, clearly impressed, and realized it was not the words alone, but the confidence behind them that carried weight. Olivia returned to the central station, scanning the remaining orders, pen in hand, ready to adjust, to intervene where needed, yet her presence was understated, almost invisible, influencing the room without fanfare. The faint scent of roasted coffee and baked bread lingered in the air, mingling with the soft background hum of conversations and the occasional clink of glassware, providing a gentle backdrop to her precise movements. Jonathan exhaled, a quiet acknowledgement of the lesson unfolding before him, that true influence was measured not in transactions or titles, but in composure, intellect, and quiet mastery. Olivia approached a table where an elderly couple were finishing their meal, setting a small plate of complimentary mince before them, her hands steady, her smile gentle, her movements exact, and the couple looked up in appreciative surprise, their expression one of warmth and admiration. Jonathan's attention remained fixed, the weight of his earlier assumptions lifting, replaced with an understanding that the strength in this room had not come from him, but from the deliberate, calm intelligence of Olivia Harper. She moved on to adjust the lighting over a table, the soft golden glow illuminating the dishes perfectly, and then carried a tray of desserts across the room with balanced precision, every step calculated to maintain elegance and efficiency. Jonathan's fingers drummed lightly on the table as he watched, impressed by the invisible rhythm she created, orchestrating the flow without a single word raised or gesture exaggerated. Olivia paused briefly, glancing around, eyes sweeping the room, noting minor misalignments or needs, correcting them subtly, a maestro of service and presence. Jonathan leaned back, the faint sound of his exhale merging with the quiet ambience, a silent tribute to the lesson he had observed. Power is not imposed. It is earned. Respect is not demanded. It is commanded through poise, competence, and the calm assertion of one's own dignity. Olivia returned to her station once more, pen poised, eyes sharp, movements fluid, a living embodiment of control and grace, demonstrating effortlessly that a single, composed person could influence the environment around them in ways far beyond any show of wealth or authority. The dining room had grown quieter, the energy softening into a gentle hum as evening progressed, the chandeliers casting warm golden light that shimmered across the polished surfaces and reflected off the glassware in delicate patterns. Olivia Harper moved with calm precision, attending to the remaining tables with a rhythm that was both fluid and measured, her hands gliding over the edges of plates, straightening silverware, and adjusting glassware without drawing attention. Jonathan Price watched her quietly, the tension that had marked his earlier demeanor replaced by a steady curiosity and growing respect. A young couple at the corner table murmured softly to each other, their hands entwined, and Olivia approached with a subtle smile, offering dessert recommendations in a clear, composed voice that carried warmth and sincerity. Jonathan noted how effortlessly she maintained her authority through quiet competence, how her presence shaped the flow of the room without a single raised word, the subtle timing and anticipation in her every action. The faint aroma of freshly baked bread and rich coffee filled the air, mingling with soft conversations, the background music weaving gently through the space. Yet Olivia's composed presence drew attention naturally, influencing the ambience with a quiet command. She moved to a family table where two children struggled to decide which dessert to choose, crouching slightly to meet their eye level, her voice soft and patient, guiding them gently without pressure, and the children's faces brightened instantly, their laughter blending seamlessly into the soft murmur of the restaurant. Jonathan leaned forward slightly, absorbing the lesson unfolding in front of him, realizing that influence and respect could be exerted without force, that composure, attentiveness, and intelligence created a subtle but profound authority. Olivia returned to the station, reviewing her notepad with meticulous attention, cross-referencing orders and checking timing, her eyes scanning the dining room, noting subtle cues from both patrons and staff, intervening as necessary with fluidity and discretion. A server passed behind her with a tray slightly askew, and Olivia intercepted it with a small, precise adjustment, maintaining the balance and flow of the room without drawing notice, her skill evident in the effortless recovery. Jonathan exhaled slowly, the subtle shift in his posture revealing the admiration and contemplation growing within him as he recognized the quiet mastery before him. Olivia approached another table, the elderly patrons thanking her quietly for the small adjustments she had made, and she responded with a soft nod and measured words, her calm presence reassuring and commanding simultaneously. The lighting shifted with the softening twilight, shadows stretching across the hardwood floor, highlighting the subtle elegance of Olivia's movements as she navigated the room, balancing multiple responsibilities with a steady grace. Jonathan observed each interaction, noting the unspoken command she held over the space, her intelligence and composure making her influence palpable, a lesson in quiet authority and understated mastery. Olivia moved with the same calm, measured rhythm toward the bar, checking on the placement of cutlery and glassware, ensuring each element aligned perfectly, the room's ambience flowing around her like a carefully orchestrated composition, and Jonathan Price, seated quietly, absorbed the profound demonstration of control, dignity, and presence that had been quietly unfolding all evening. The dining room had quieted further, the last waves of diners sipping coffee or finishing dessert, and Olivia Harper moved with unhurried care, attending to each table with an ease that belied the complexity of her movements. Her hands adjusted silverware, straightened plates, and refilled glasses, all while her eyes continuously scanned the room, noting the subtle shifts in posture or gaze of each guest, anticipating needs before they were expressed. Jonathan Price remained seated, his fingers lightly drumming on the polished wood of the table, observing with an intensity tempered by curiosity and growing respect. Olivia approached a young man reviewing a menu for a group order, kneeling slightly to meet his eyes, her voice soft, calm, and informative, guiding the selection with gentle suggestions that were precise, yet unobtrusive. Jonathan noted how the attention she gave was simultaneously personal and professional, a balance few could maintain under pressure. She moved next to a couple whose conversation had faltered, offering a small, composed smile, and posed a subtle question about their preferences, drawing them back into discussion effortlessly. Her influence felt rather than spoken. The subtle clatter of dishes from the kitchen, the quiet chatter of remaining patrons, and the occasional clink of cutlery provided a gentle backdrop. Yet Olivia's presence seemed to shape the tempo of the space, directing it without command. Jonathan's gaze lingered, absorbing the unspoken lessons in poise, anticipation, and measured action, recognizing that authority could emerge not from words or wealth, but from calm competence and understated influence. Olivia returned briefly to the station to review notes, the pen gliding across her pad with controlled precision, her eyes sweeping the room, making small adjustments here and there, a gentle flick of a napkin, or the repositioning of a glass, maintaining order without fanfare. A waiter passed carrying a tray slightly askew, and Olivia intercepted it smoothly, adjusting the balance and ensuring the delivery continued seamlessly, the motion unnoticed by the room, yet impacting the flow subtly. Jonathan exhaled slowly, the quiet realization settling that the control in this room was not dictated by status or power, but by the thoughtful execution of each action, the calm, yet deliberate choices made by Olivia Harper. She moved to a family at a corner table, checking on their satisfaction, her voice steady, friendly, and precise, guiding them gently while allowing them autonomy, their smiles a quiet acknowledgement of her skill. The warm light of the chandeliers highlighted her focused movements, the subtle reflections emphasizing her presence, and Jonathan watched with an unspoken acknowledgement, understanding that influence could be quiet yet undeniable, a mastery of space, timing, and attention that shaped the evening as effectively as any command or directive. Olivia returned to her central station, hands steady, eyes alert, ready to anticipate the next need, her composed energy radiating through the dining room, leaving an impression that lingered beyond her immediate interactions, teaching silently the power of intellect, poise, and calm command. The restaurant was settling into the final hours of service, the low hum of conversation mingling with the soft clatter of dishes and the occasional chime of the kitchen bell. Olivia Harper moved with deliberate precision, carrying plates and refilling glasses, her hands steady, her posture upright, her gaze constantly scanning the room for subtle changes in the environment. Jonathan Price watched from his table, his expression quiet, reflective, his usual impatience replaced by a measured curiosity as he studied her interactions. A small family at a corner table laughed softly, their children eager to finish their desserts, and Olivia knelt slightly to their level, speaking in a calm, controlled voice, guiding them gently through choices and offering assistance without intrusion, the warmth in her tone making her presence feel both natural and reassuring. Jonathan's eyes followed her, noting how she managed to balance attentiveness with efficiency, her movements smooth, her decisions instinctive yet precise, each act reinforcing the quiet command she held over the room. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mixed with the faint scent of baked goods, filling the space with a comforting warmth that mirrored the steady rhythm Olivia maintained. Her influence felt subtly in every corner of the dining room. She moved to a table with a couple finalizing their check, adjusting the placement of utensils and napkins with gentle care, offering clear, concise explanations for any questions they asked, and collecting the payment with understated professionalism. Jonathan leaned back slightly, the leather chair creaking under the shift, observing the way her calm intelligence diffused tension and guided the flow of the room without a single raised voice. Olivia returned to her central station, reviewing the remaining orders and making subtle adjustments, her pen gliding across the notepad as she checked details, her eyes scanning the room for minor discrepancies, correcting them with discreet, practiced movements that went almost unnoticed by anyone but Jonathan. A server accidentally knocked a glass slightly, and Olivia intercepted it before it tipped, repositioning it smoothly, the action small, but maintaining the balance and flow of the dining experience. Jonathan exhaled slowly, the subtle shift in his posture reflecting a growing respect and quiet acknowledgement of her competence and control, realizing that influence and authority could be established without command or show, that true mastery lay in calm assessment, thoughtful action, and steady presence. Olivia moved to a remaining table where two patrons were finishing their meals, offering a final word of courtesy and checking that their experience had met their expectations, her demeanor calm, composed, and unwavering. The light from the chandeliers glimmered softly, reflecting in the polished surfaces, emphasizing the quiet elegance of her movements as she navigated the room, guiding the evening to a smooth close. Jonathan sat in thoughtful silence, absorbing the full measure of her skill, understanding that the most profound influence came not from wealth, not from assertion, but from intelligence, poise, and the unshakable confidence of a person in command of themselves and their environment. Olivia Harper embodying that lesson effortlessly in every gesture and measured step. The restaurant had quieted almost entirely, the last diners finishing their meals and the soft clatter of dishes fading into the background, leaving a serene hum that settled over the polished floors and gleaming tables. Olivia Harper moved deliberately, attending to the final details, straightening chairs, adjusting napkins, and ensuring that every glass reflected the soft glow of the chandeliers above. Jonathan Price remained seated, his posture relaxed yet attentive, his hands lightly resting on the table as he watched her, the sharp edges of his day softened by the quiet mastery she exhibited. A small group at the corner table whispered softly, their conversation light and unobtrusive, and Olivia approached with a composed smile, guiding them gently with clear, calm instructions for settling the check and gathering their belongings, the precision of her gestures reinforcing the ease and order of the room. Jonathan noted how her presence seemed to influence the pace and atmosphere effortlessly, each movement calculated to maintain balance and harmony, without overt control, her authority emanating quietly through competence and poise. She returned to the central station, pen in hand, scanning her notepad with practiced efficiency, double-checking orders, timing, and minor details that might otherwise be overlooked, her attention unwavering and complete. The soft scent of coffee and baked goods lingered, mingling with the fading murmur of patrons, creating a warm, inviting environment. Yet Olivia's quiet command of the space remained the unspoken centerpiece, shaping the flow of the room in subtle but undeniable ways. Jonathan exhaled slowly, the weight of recognition settling in as he considered how her intellect and composure had orchestrated the entire evening with such effortless control, a lesson in influence that required no demonstration of power, no show of wealth, only the steady, consistent application of skill, observation, and calm decision-making. Olivia adjusted a utensil for an elderly couple, then moved to replace a slightly askew chair, her movements fluid and natural, almost invisible, yet shaping the room with undeniable precision. Jonathan watched the interplay of her actions and the reactions of those around her, the soft smiles, the reassured nods, the subtle deference earned not through authority, but through the seamless execution of her duties and the calm intelligence she displayed. She paused at the entrance, glancing briefly at the dimming lights outside, then returned to the final station, collecting pens, checking receipts, and reviewing notes for the last few orders, all with the same meticulous care and composed presence. Jonathan leaned back, a quiet acknowledgement in his gaze, understanding that the true measure of mastery was not in asserting dominance or wealth, but in the ability to command respect, guide attention, and influence outcomes silently, through poise, intelligence, and the unwavering confidence of someone fully aware of their own competence. Olivia Harper moved to the last table, offering a soft word of thanks and farewell to the patrons, her movements precise, her voice calm and reassuring, leaving an impression of quiet authority and dignity that lingered in the room long after the final chair had been adjusted and the soft murmur of departing guests faded into the evening. The last of the patrons had stepped out into the crisp evening air, leaving the restaurant bathed in the warm glow of chandeliers and the soft hum of an empty room settling into quiet. Olivia Harper moved through the tables one final time, checking for stray items, straightening chairs, and smoothing napkins with precise, graceful movements. Jonathan Price remained at his table, quietly observing, his initial intentions and impatience replaced by a reflective calm, a sense of respect that had grown steadily through the evening. She approached him with a gentle smile, placing the remaining receipt and a small note of thanks with understated elegance, her eyes meeting his with a quiet dignity that conveyed competence, awareness, and humanity all at once. Jonathan studied her for a long moment, the subtle shift in his posture signaling a profound acknowledgement of the lesson he had received, the realization that influence, respect, and authority could be commanded without arrogance, loud words, or displays of wealth. Olivia's calm, unassuming presence had transformed the space, her attention to detail, intelligence, and patience leaving an indelible mark on everyone who had witnessed her. The soft scent of coffee lingered, mixing with the fading warmth of baked bread, and the gentle light reflected off the polished surfaces, casting a comforting, intimate glow throughout the room. Jonathan finally rose, the weight of his day and his earlier assumptions replaced by a quiet admiration, his gaze following Olivia as she moved to ensure the last table was ready for tomorrow, each motion a testament to poise and skill. He realized that the evening had not been about proving power or testing limits, but about the quiet demonstration of integrity and the unshakable strength of character. Olivia paused briefly by the window, looking out at the streets, and in that moment of stillness, the balance of dignity, respect, and humanity that she had maintained became palpable, a calming presence that resonated far beyond the confines of the restaurant. Jonathan approached slowly, acknowledging with a soft nod the impact of her composure and the subtle authority she had exercised, a silent understanding passing between them, unspoken yet deeply felt. She returned his nod with a quiet smile, the room's energy settling into a peaceful rhythm, the lingering impression of quiet mastery and calm dignity filling the space. The evening closed gently, with the soft flicker of the chandeliers and the residual warmth of shared moments, leaving a sense of justice and emotional clarity, the knowledge that true strength often resides in the calmest, most composed individuals. As Olivia turned off the last lights and stepped out into the cool night, Jonathan lingered for a moment longer, reflecting on the lessons of the evening, the quiet power of presence, and the impact of understated excellence. If this story touched you, consider sharing your thoughts below, letting others feel the quiet strength and dignity that sometimes speaks louder than words, and subscribe to join us for more moments where calm courage and human integrity leave their mark.